بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. نريد الشريف together. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله صدق الله العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has enabled us to once again come to the masjid to take some time out of our busy lives and to do that thing which we were created for, which is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When a person does what he is supposed to, he feels complete, he feels at peace, and he feels at ease. And this is the feeling which we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us for as many moments of our lives as possible. Ameen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created insan, and Allah created insan weak. وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. No insan, no human, except Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, is perfect. We have been made so that we make mistakes, we slip up, we do wrong, and after doing wrong we have an option. Do we turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or do we continue to do wrong? And the purpose and the beauty of being a Muslim is such that the Ummah is known as one. Al-mu'minuna ka rajulin wahid. That all of the believers are like one person. In ishtaka ra'suhu ishtaka aynu wa in ishtaka ra'suhu ishtaka kullu. That whenever his head hurts, all of the body hurts. Whenever his eye hurts, all of the body hurts. So if a person is in some kind of a pain, it's not just that pain stays in that one place and he feels good. He just doesn't feel good because of the pain. So in the same way, whenever we go through any kind of a difficulty as an ummah, we are supposed to stick together as one. And each and every one of us, we have the same goal that we want to accomplish. And that goal that we want to accomplish is to get entry into Jannah. And now if we have help on our way, if we have help on this path to Jannah, then it will be much easier for us. Without that help, we can go here, we can go there, we can get lost if there is not someone to hold our hand. And of course, Nabi SAW is not around today to help us, but his sunnahs are still there, his ways and his teachings are still there. And what else we have is تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر, that our deen has commanded that because there are no more prophets to come, now we have that opportunity and we have that option and we have that chance to take and do the work that the prophets used to do, which was they would go to their people and they would say, this is good, come towards it, and this is bad, stay away from it, it will be beneficial for you. And this is known as Naseehah, that to try and give good advice to somebody. Nabi SAW mentioned in a hadith, ad-deen al-Naseehah, that deen is giving sincere advice. Now when we think of advice, there are many different ways to look at advice and to think of advice. In order for a person to take benefit from advice, they have to want the advice. If somebody doesn't have an open heart where they're not ready to accept any advice, then it is very difficult to give that advice. Now if we look into the Sahabas and we look into the lifetime of Nabi SAW, the people at that time, they knew that they were not perfect. They knew that they were living in the company of Nabi SAW and they could go and ask for help whenever they needed. But because of them understanding that I don't know everything, that I am not perfect, that I will make a mistake, they were happy and they were ready to always listen to what anybody had to say. So this is the first quality that we have to try and bring into ourselves, that to open up our hearts and to understand that I am not perfect, that I will make a mistake, and to have the need and the want to take advice. This is the first part. If a person doesn't have that will from the start, it's not going to have any benefit whatsoever. So the first part is understanding وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا, that I am weak and I will need help along the way. And now who do we take help from? Is there some kind of a condition that we take help from only the Imam of the Masjid or our elders? There is no condition whatsoever. Any single person that we can take some kind of advice from, even if it is a young child, we have to take the advice from the child. Because it's not about who is saying the thing, it is what is being said. That what kind of an advice is being given to me. And when a person has in his mind an open heart, that I am ready to take whatever advice is given to me in order to become a better Muslim, then this is going to be helpful for us. So this is the first part. That to understand that I want to take the advice, that this is going to help me. And when the advice is given, the person who is giving the advice, this person has many conditions as well. That we are living in a time when there is social media, and we have phones, and we have all of these different ways to interact and connect with other people. And the intention for giving advice has to be correct as well. Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim. A Muslim is the brother of another Muslim. And we hear in the read the other ahadith about to want for your brother what you want for yourself. Now we have to ask ourselves the question that if somebody was to come and give advice to me, how would I like for them to give me advice? So if somebody makes a mistake, sometimes what happens is maybe there's a group chat or on Facebook or all of these different platforms where a person is able to connect. Instead of privately talking to the person, what happens is the person, he puts it out in public. You know, why are you doing this? And my feeling on this is it should be like this. Whereas our deen teaches us that we should go and give advice in the most private way possible. Nabi SAW, he would always whenever he would find out about something bad which had been done, or something which he heard about, as the Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she mentions, the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would always say that, why is it that, he wouldn't say that, why is it that such and such a person doing this thing? He would say the word, instead he would say aqwam, that why is it the people, why do people do these kind of things? Why do people do these kind of things? He wouldn't say why does such and such a person. So just if anybody who was sitting in that gathering, they would know exactly who it was being spoken about, but then they would take it for themselves as well. And this is something that we can learn from. The Nabi SAW would never want to put a person in a position where they would feel embarrassed or humiliated. And our purpose for giving nasihah is not to humiliate a person. It's not to show that I am better than you. It is, I love you and I want us both to go into Jannah. This has to be the reason for it. And if a person is sincere in his nasihah, he will take the person to the side and he will speak to him in a nice way. And another sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was that whenever he would give nasihah, he wouldn't go straight into the nasihah. He would speak about all of the good qualities about a person first. He would say that I like this about you and I like this about you, but here is something that you can improve on. And this is something that we can do as well. And majority of the time what happens is the person who is giving nasihah, the person who he wants to give nasihah to, he hasn't even spoken to him for so many months. And the first thing that he says is, why are you doing this? You shouldn't be doing it like that. Whereas to keep that relationship with people and to always look for the good in everybody first. And if there is a way that they can improve, then to speak about it with them in that kind of a way. There was once a sahabi who went to another sahabi and he asked that, why don't you, I want to give you some kind of advice, but I'm going to be very strict and I'm going to be very straightforward. So this sahabi who was going to be given the advice, he said that, are you better than Musa alayhi salam? Or am I worse than Fir'aun that you are going to give me such an advice? He said, no, Allah mentions in the Quran, فَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا, that when you go and speak to Fir'aun, speak in a soft kind of a tone. And this is the same way that our tone determines exactly how a person is going to take the advice which is given. If we speak in a nice calm way, we will get the exact same kind of a reply back, and maybe they will take the advice. Whereas if the calmness is not there, if we are shouting and screaming and being very stern with them, then it's going to go straight over their head and they're not going to listen to what is being said. And this is why it is so important to understand that there are etiquettes and ways of giving nasihah. There are etiquettes and ways of doing every single thing which we do in our daily lives. And this can only be brought into our life when we look into the life of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and we see how much he loved people. The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned that we should be in such a way that if a person has 99 bad qualities, we look at that one good quality that he has. Just that one good quality. That today we are so quick to look for the negatives and we are so quick to point out something wrong which a person has done that we find it very difficult to accept. And we don't like to be told that you are doing something wrong. Whereas if we understand and we have the mindset of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in, who they knew that they were not perfect, and that somewhere down the line that I am doing wrong. And we should have that feeling in our own hearts that if I am doing something wrong, I would like somebody else to say it to me. We should be in that position. As a community, as a family, it should be if I am doing something wrong, another one of my family members should say to me, you are doing something wrong. And this is how you can improve. Usually what happens is the family member will point something out and say, when did you become a Maulwi? When did you become a Sheikh? That's what they say. Whereas we are trying to help out one another, and this is where our minds have to be opened up. That open up your heart and think, what is more beneficial for me? Is it beneficial for me to take this advice, or is it beneficial for me to ignore the advice? And majority of the time it will be beneficial that we take that advice. So if we open up our hearts and we understand that the the reason why the person is saying it is to better him, to better myself and to better himself, then that is going to be a positive thing for us. So this is where, by looking into the life of Nabi SAW, by understanding that these are the ways to do things, then we will see some kind of a progress in our families, in our communities, and this is how we will be able to take sincere advice and naseehah. Naseehah is such a thing where if it is not done correctly, then it can have the complete opposite effect. And this is why it is so important, that because of maybe somebody saying something in the wrong way, it can even turn a person away from Islam. Imagine a person who very rarely comes to the masjid, and one day he comes into the masjid and he says, "Where have you been your whole life? Why have you never prayed?" That person, he's going to go away and he'll never come back again. But if he is taught and he is brought in with love, then he will have that want to come again. So Nabi SAW came into the dunya to show us exactly how to be with one another. And this is the most important quality which is missing from the ummah today. The akhlaq that we need. The akhlaq that we have to bring into our life in order to have the love with one another. That to have an open heart and to want to take the advice. And when it's time to give advice, to not be scared as well. Majority of the time people are scared to give advice because they know that the person is going to react in such a way. And this is where, if we give off that good vibe, if we have these kind of conversations with one another. So this is another problem as well, we don't have these conversations. That if I'm ever wrong, please do say it to me. In our mindset we have, I am never wrong, I will never be wrong, and if I am wrong, I'll prove it somehow that I am still not wrong. So this is where we have to open up and make sure that there is, each and every one of us, we have imperfections in our lives, and we want to try and improve it. And the best way to try and improve is to think, if Nabi SAW was amongst us today, if I was to have a one-on-one chat with him, and he was to know me a little bit better, what kind of naseehah would he give me? What would he say that I have to improve on? Each and every one of us know in our hearts of hearts what we have to improve on, what we can do better. But think, that Nabi SAW, what would I change in my life if Nabi SAW was in the community? How would I improve myself as a Muslim? What would I do? What would I change in my life? And this is some of the things that we have to answer and ask ourselves. That when everything is clear in front of us, then we are able to make decisions. But because our deen is such where a lot of it is believing in the unseen, we have not seen Nabi SAW, but we believe in him. And if he was to be in our congregations, in our gatherings, then how would I be different? So this is something that I would like you to go away with and ask yourself, that how can we change our life around? How can we make ourselves better? And the way to make ourselves better is to always understand that this deen, it is not just for a few seconds, like when we come to the masjid or when we go to when we go for Hajj and Umrah. This deen is for the whole life that we have in this dunya. That every single thing that we do, it is a way for us to get rewarded. It is a way for us to follow the sunnahs of Nabi SAW. And the more we bring the sunnahs of Nabi SAW into our life, the more beneficial it will be for us. Allah give us the tawfiq to act upon these things. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. If everybody can just move forward please and fill in the gaps and wear your masks properly.